Welcome to our second subject programme of learning. This is an online version of the JCT Science Cluster Day that was facilitated with schools over the academic year of 2019 and 2020. We have broken a full day up into 4 modules to allow you to access it at your convenience. The title of the Cluster Day is Deepening the Learning. This refers to the unique position of having completed a full cycle of Junior Cycle Science. The recording of this series of screencasts was made necessary by the current situation, whereby the restrictions in place to counter the pandemic of COVID-19 has made it impossible for us to bring this workshop to teachers in its original format of a live workshop. We have made all possible efforts to adapt our workshop in such a way that, although it was originally designed for live interaction in groups, teachers can benefit from engaging remotely with this content. This video is broken into 4 sessions which can be viewed separately. However, for continuity and in keeping with the day from last year, it is recommended that you watch them in sequence. They are Session 1, Exploring Skill Development. Session 2, Planning. Session 3, Moving Students Forward. And Session 4, Exploring Concept Development. The video will play from start to finish for each session, and it can be stopped at any stage, rewound or rewatched. There are specific moments where we will recommend that you pause, engage with the learning experience and then restart by pressing play. When this is the case, you will be directed to do so and you will see the pause and play icons on the slide. This resource can be engaged with by individual teachers. However, some activities will be made richer by collaborating with colleagues, as happened during the workshop. With this in mind, we've endeavoured to bring you the teacher voice from the many cluster venues we visited throughout the last year. In order to do this, throughout the presentation you will see a Blackboard slide which will give you a flavour of some of the conversations that occurred and feedback from teachers. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping points to note. Please open the booklet that accompanies this video. It can be found adjacent to the video you're viewing on the JCT website. It can be viewed online or downloaded and or printed off. If you need some scribble space, I would recommend you keep a small notepad and pen on your desk. You will also need a pink and green highlighter if you have them handy, or any 2 different colour highlighter pens. You can use a QR code reader to access material throughout the day whenever you see a QR code on screen or in the booklet. If you don't have one on your phone, it might be worth downloading one now. They're generally free. Welcome to Session 2, Planning. Our learning intentions for all the sessions are to deepen our understanding of the process of developing our students as scientists, to appreciate the value of collaborative practice in our department. We'll explore aspects of the first learning intention through the different parts of these modules. And the second will be experience as you carry the learning back to your department. Your department have been developing their understanding of the process of planning. The start of the planning process is by unpacking the learning outcomes, so each department has consensus on the key learning and agreed assessment checks. On page 17, 18 and 19 you will find how 3 different schools captured their collaborative conversations using the collaborative planning document from www.jct.ie/science. If you are new to Junior Cycle Science and want more information on unpacking learning outcomes, use the QR codes to access further supports. Pause the video now if you wish to view these resources. If our learning intention is to deepen our understanding of the process of developing our students as scientists, if we take that scientists need the skill of being a researcher, how do we plan for this to develop in our students when each school has a different approach to how their students reach this goal? The framework for Junior Cycle 2015 allows for this development to happen and recognises the importance of each school having autonomy to plan its pathway through the process. It also recognises that understanding skills and values have to be planned for and that teacher collaboration is vital for this to move forward. The learning is layered over the 3 years of Junior Cycle Science. Your colleagues have experienced this process as a science department when they attended the cluster day and may have developed a plan from this. This experience is to give you an understanding of the thinking behind the planning and how you can be part of the collaborative process with your department on your return. As a department, you've collaborated on unpacking the learning outcomes. You've interrogated the action verbs within each learning outcome. You've engaged with the nature of science outcomes too. You've identified the skills that are in each learning outcome, and now we'll experience how to develop these skills across the 3-year cycle. Your colleagues would have been given a sheet with 10 learning outcomes that we as the science team selected that could potentially have an element of research in them. They then cut them up and had a conversation about where they felt they should go across the 3-year plan. Through discussions, they would have decided where to place the learning outcomes. Some departments may have wanted to split learning outcomes across 2 or more years. They would have just cut out another copy of the learning outcome and highlighted the parts they were doing in each year a different colour. After laying out the 10 learning outcomes across the 3 years, they would have had a discussion around how the nature of science learning outcomes would have fitted into the plan. Some of it all the time, small pieces of the nature of science learning outcomes being focused on within each class. Pursued through the content and activities of the contextual strands, the small pieces of nature of science would come alive through the contextual strands of earth and space, biological, chemical and physical worlds. Must be planned for and assessed. For the nature of science to be developed within students, it must be planned and assessed for. Your colleagues would have got the following nature of science learning outcomes with the research learning outcomes to support them in the planning process. They would have been asked to discuss how and where they would fit in their current plan. To try out this approach to planning, we've designed an online version of the paper Approach to Planning. In a moment, we'll be asking you to pause and engage with the planning tool, which looks like this. There are instructions here. You read through the suggested learning outcomes and drag and drop them to the year you think they best suit your cohort or context. Pause now and use the QR code to get to the planning document. After laying out the 10 suggested learning outcomes that could support the development of the skill researching, they were asked to think about their placement. What does the plan look like? Are all the learning outcomes in one column or area? Or are there opportunities across the 3 years to develop the skill? When are there opportunities for contextualizing the learning outcomes? Perhaps Space Week could be one. When are the CBAs happening? Do you have science competitions? How will you manage resources, labs, numbers of students, etc.? If our learning intention is to deepen our understanding of the process of developing our students as scientists, and if we take that scientist needs the skill of being an investigator, how do we plan for this to develop in our students when each school has a different approach to how the students reach that goal? Again, this is building on our understanding that we developed as a department in unpacking the science learning outcomes. Your colleagues would have been given a sheet with 9 learning outcomes that we as the science team selected that could potentially have an element of investigation in them. They then cut them up and had a conversation about where they felt they should go across the 3-year department plan. Through discussion, they would have decided where to place the learning outcomes. Some departments may have wanted to split learning outcomes again across 2 years or more. They would just have cut out another copy of the learning outcome and highlighted the parts they were doing in each year a different colour. If our learning intention is to deepen our understanding of the process of developing our students as scientists, and if we take that scientists need to understand scientific concepts, how do we plan for this understanding to develop in our students when each school has a different approach to how their students reach that goal? Your colleagues would have been given a sheet with the rest of the learning outcomes. They then would have cut them up and had a conversation about where they felt they would go across the 3-year department plan. Through discussion, they would have decided where to place the learning outcomes. Some departments may have wanted to split the learning outcomes across 2 years or more. Again, they would have cut out another copy of the learning outcome and highlighted the particular part in the right colour for that year. After finishing laying out the learning outcomes across 3 years, they would have had a discussion again around how the nature of science learning outcomes would have fitted into their plan. Your colleagues would have got the rest of the nature of science learning outcomes. These are the nature of science learning outcomes your colleagues would have got. Having discussed and placed the learning outcomes across the 3 years, so as your learners have regular opportunities to build their skills and understanding. The next step would have been your colleagues discussing what's happening within 1 year. They would have organised the groups of learning outcomes into blocks of learning called units of learning. As we are developing our units of learning, we'll be conscious of the unpacked documents that we have created as a department. Other ideas to keep in mind are concept development, nature of science, assessment, keeping the learner at the centre, skill development, action verbs, and inclusive practices. If you are new to developing units of learning and need more support, please follow the QR codes to our JCT Science website, where there's a video there to explain how to do this. Also, the other QR code brings you to all our available planning documents. Our plan is to develop students as scientists. We know that students bring their own voice to the planning journey. By placing the students at the centre of the learning, the plan can allow them to develop their potential as scientists. As the author and aviator Antoine de Saint-Exupéry says, a goal without a plan is just a wish. We hope that you found this helpful, and we appreciate that it does not replace the face-to-face interactions with other teachers. There are 3 other sessions related to this day if you have not seen them already. Our learning intention for all the sessions are to deepen our understanding of the process of developing our students as scientists, and to appreciate the value of collaborative practice in our department. We hope by engaging with all the sessions you will have a good understanding of developing your students as scientists. With the new understanding gained by engaging with these sessions, we hope that you'll be able to support your colleagues as you all work collaboratively to develop your understanding of junior cycle science in the context of your school and your students. For further supports, visit our website www.jct.ie/science. Follow us on Twitter using the handle @JCTScience, or email us on info@jct.ie. Please use www.jctregistration.ie to offer feedback when you've completed all the sessions. Finally, thank you for taking the time to watch our short video. We're looking forward to seeing you in the future for our next CPD event.